All right, everyone. So welcome to today's video podcast talking about calorie counting 101. If you are somebody who is new to weight loss and is trying to learn the ropes of it, learning how to count calories properly will allow you to lose weight the most efficiently. Now, over time, you will hopefully get to a point where you don't need to count calories, but if you are just starting out, knowing the tools on how to count calories, how many calories you should be eating per day, and ultimately how many calories are just in food is incredibly vital and incredibly important. So stay tuned because we've got some great information for you to get you towards your weight loss goals. Go ahead and give the video a like to help support the channel, and we'll go ahead and jump right in. So kind of a starting point that I wanted to go over is just this idea of calorie counting in general. So what is calorie counting and how does it really work? So to start off, let's just talk about a calorie in general. Because if we're going to be counting calories, we should know ideally what a calorie is, right? So a calorie in itself is just a measure of energy. It's a measure of energy. Specifically, when we're talking about a calorie, we're actually talking about 1 kilocalorie. That's the correct term, but when you're thinking about just a calorie in general, just know in itself that a calorie, when we say calorie, we're actually meaning kilocalorie, and a kilocalorie is essentially the amount of energy needed to raise 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So that's all fancy term. Basically knowing that when we're talking about a calorie, as in a kilocalorie, it's energy, because you need energy to raise 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius, of course. So calorie and kilocalorie are used interchangeably in society and in our worlds. Just know that if you have more calories, generally speaking, this is going to be more energy. Now, when we look at it from the perspective of why we might actually be counting calories, the way we use it, at least in our society, is a measure of food. And as we just discussed, the more calories you have, the more energy you have. So since we're talking about, of course, calories being food, the more calories, and the more energy. So really simple stuff there, just to kind of lay the framework, but just know that a calorie in itself comes from a food. A food literally isn't a calorie, but food has calories, and calories give us energy. So that's an important thing to know when we're trying to count these things. So you might then be asking, why in the world would we do this? Why would I need to actually count calories, and especially when it comes to losing weight? Well, when we're losing weight, we actually look at this term called energy balance. As in, when we're losing weight, we need to be in an energy deficit. So weight loss is all about energy balance. So this idea is kind of looking at calories in versus calories out. And basically, when we talk about calories out, we exercise calories, we need calories to stay alive, and we also burn some calories digesting food. So those are all ways that we expend energy and expend calories in our daily life. That's kind of the out portion of the energy balance or calories in versus calories out equation. We also take calories in. This is through food. This is also through drinks. And essentially, these different things, these different inputs give us energy. As we just discussed, those calories are forms of energy. So again, kind of bringing this all back together, calories have energy. And when we talk about food, food has calories in it, as in the food in itself is giving us energy. When we are consuming food and maybe even some drinks that have calories, that's one way we get energy into our body. And then we also expel energy or burn energy. This is the calories out. This is through exercise, all the different processes of our body to stay alive. So basically cell repair, your heart beating, digestion happening. All of these things are different things that you actually do to burn calories just to keep you alive. And then also you burn a little bit of calories from digesting food. So let's just look at an example of somebody who needs to eat 2,500 calories a day to maintain their weight. And hopefully this will give you a little bit of context. So we need 2,500 calories to maintain this person's weight. If that person starts eating 2,000 calories per day, as in they're eating 500 less calories per day than they need to maintain their weight, they're going to lose weight. Also, if this person is eating more than that 2,500 calories a day, guess what? They in itself are going to gain weight, right? So that's why calorie counting is so incredibly important when we're trying to think about this weight loss goals, because at the end of the day, the calories are going to dictate that. The calories are going to dictate that, whether you are eating too much or too little over your baseline. And we'll look at that in a second further in the podcast. But essentially, this is what calorie counting is. You're counting the amount of energy you take in. And when we talk about weight loss in itself, this is an incredibly useful tool because it really beats all the guesswork out of it. You're just counting the amount of food you're taking in. And if you know roughly how much food, calories you're burning per day, you can lose weight extremely rapidly. So that's kind of a basic start. And the next thing that I often get asked about that is kind of a good segue into this is then how many calories should I eat to lose weight, right? We just discussed that you need to be in an energy deficit. So how do I get into an energy deficit? What are the things, and basically how do I get to that point, right? So weight loss in itself, we need that calorie deficit, and we need to eat less calories than you burn. How many calories less? Well, there's about 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. And this is a lot of calories. If you think about going and just eating 3,500 calories of anything at one sitting, that's a lot of calories, a lot of energy, a lot of food. So if we think about that idea of 3,500 calories being in 1 pound of fat, it would make sense that we need to eat over a period of time 3,500 calories less than what our body burns in a day. So let's kind of look at this. So 500 calories a day below your maintenance calories, you will lose roughly 1 pound a week. Because if you think about it, you take 500 calories and multiply that by 7, that's 3,500 calories. So if you are eating 500 calories less than your maintenance, and we'll look at that in a second, and that actually find your maintenance calories, you're going to lose about 1 pound a week. Also too, let's think about if you are eating 1,000 calories below your maintenance per day. You are going to now be burning 7,000 calories, not burning 7,000 calories, eating 7,000 calories less per week from your maintenance. So 1 pound a week is from eating 3,500 calories less per food. That means if we double that, we're going to be losing 2 pounds a week if we're eating 1,000 calories less. So just some kind of important things there. I usually like having people try to do about a 1% of body weight loss per week. So if somebody is 150 pounds and they're trying to lose some weight, you would roughly lose about 1.5 pounds a week. The thing about all of this though is that plateaus happen quickly, so you can't just eat 500 calories less per day and you're just going to maintain that 1 pound weight loss forever, simply because your body will adapt, your body will get used to this, and ultimately your fat will basically stop being lost. Also too, I do want to note that not all of the weight when we are losing weight comes from fat. Ideally, if we are doing it at a slow rate, as in about that 1 pound per week for most individuals, or 1%, You will lose roughly 66% of your weight from fat, but in addition to this, you're going to lose about 33% of your weight from muscle. This is why it's incredibly important to make sure that you are resistance training when you are losing weight so you can keep that muscle mass. And muscle mass is extremely metabolically active at rest. So if you're trying to make weight loss the easiest for yourself, doing this is going to allow you to burn more calories at rest and allow you to have weight loss be the easiest for yourself. If you are finding value from this and learning something new so far, please give the video a like. So we talked about maintenance calories a lot in this little section here. So you're probably thinking, okay, I need to eat 500 calories less per day than my maintenance. How in the world do I get my maintenance calories? The way that I recommend and the way that I usually do it for myself if I'm trying to kind of look at my overall calorie goal is by using the NIH body weight calculator. And this is essentially a calorie calculator. I did link that below down in the description if you don't want to check that out. And essentially based off of how much your activity level is, what your sex is, so if you're male or female, what your age is. If you are younger, you're going to be burning more calories, and also what your activity level is, both inside work and outside of work. It's going to give you a rough estimate of how many calories you should be eating per day. And this is great. This is great because it gives you kind of a ballpark estimate of something you can work with. What you will probably have to do is kind of adjust based off of how you are counting those calories. So if you notice like, oh my gosh, my maintenance, it says I'm supposed to eat 2,000 calories per day. I know that's not enough for me. I know that's not enough just because I'm very physically active. So maybe in that case you would add, I don't know, 200 to 300 calories just to kind of give yourself a little bit of extra buffer, a little bit of extra calories, of course, because you are burning more. You can also do what I call the guess and check method. And this is basically where you just pick a random number. It doesn't really matter particularly where it is. You could say, I'm going to start with 2,000 calories. You could try to eat 500 less calories per day if you are, again, trying to lose 1 pound of body fat per week, and then see how it goes for you. If you do lose about 1 pound a week, guess what? Your maintenance was probably about 2,000 calories. But if you're losing way more, if you're like literally melting away by the end of the first week, you probably need to bump up your calories a little bit because you probably did not have that correct amount. So both of them are going to be a little bit of something that you need to tweak for yourself, but ultimately just knowing that there's so many calculators online. If you just type in calorie calculators, I like the NIH one. That's going to give you a good frame of reference to start, and then you can just work from there. So that's roughly about the calories you need to lose weight. Again, go into this slowly, be open-minded, and just realize it's not going to happen extremely quickly, as weight loss takes a long time to happen. So the next part of this that I wanted to go over are some easy ways to track your calorie intake. We just discussed that it's super important to, when we're trying to lose weight, to try to be in a calorie deficit. So you might be overwhelmed thinking, how in the world am I going to track all those calories? So I'm going to give you some of the things that I've used in my life, and these are really, really good tools. And you can kind of try out a few of these, try out one of them, try out all of them. You know, this is just kind of for yourself, for your own dispense. Probably in our day and age, one of the best things that you can do when it comes to tracking calories is use an app. We're all on our phones every single day, and a lot of us are thankful in this day and age we have smartphones. And guess what? There are some really great apps to count calories. The one that I use so much when I first started was called MyFitnessPal. This was a great calorie counting app that had a lot of different options on it. So one of the cool things that it had, you could actually intake your water. So you could put your water intake on there. You could put roughly how many calories you burn from exercise. So if you're somebody who is trying to add back in the calories they burn from exercise, you can add that into MyFitnessPal. You can scan barcodes on it. That's a really cool feature. So if you're eating like a prepackaged granola bar, you can scan the barcode and it'll pop right up on there and give you some good ideas of what the nutrition is on that versus manually entering it. That is another cool aspect of MyFitnessPal that I did really like about it though, is that you can actually just manually enter, say something that's 20 grams of protein. You can just literally type in protein, 20 grams. Boom, you're good. So MyFitnessPal is a great one. There's a lot of other great ones too. I don't have any personal experience with the Weight Watchers app or the Weight Watchers platform, but a lot of people like that because it's just kind of a different way to count calories. And you know, people might be thinking like, oh, it's Weight Watchers. I don't count calories, I count points. Well, the thing is, points, calories, it's literally all the same thing. Another app, and again, I was just looking at some ones on the App Store that were top rated. Another app was called Lose It that I found in my research. MyPlate, and this is one that's actually in conjunction with the government. So myplate.gov, it's basically the public health recommendations for you to eat a healthy, nutritious diet and, of course, maintain your weight as that's part of it. There's lots of good benefits to the apps, and I've already kind of touched on some of these when looking at MyFitnessPal specifically. Some of them have really, really cool recipes for your specific weight loss goals, which is really, really nice because you might be thinking, what in the world? I have no idea what to eat. You know, I know I need to count calories. I know I need to eat less, but what do I eat? You know, there's so many things out there. Some of these apps give you really good ideas of recipes, and also they will tie in the calories of that specific recipe into the thing, so you can just immediately plug it right into the app. I don't think MyFitnessPal has this. Some of those others might. Another really great thing, especially in today's day and age, is that there is a large database of so many different foods. I was honestly shocked when I first started counting calories, especially with the use of MyFitnessPal, because I looked in there and I'm like, oh, there's no way they have my favorite granola bar. Boom, they have it in there, no problem. You can type in half an apple. Boom, you can find out the calories in half an apple. How about a bag of popcorn at the movie theater? You can literally type in movie theater popcorn with extra butter. That will be a category of a food that you can actually plug in to MyFitnessPal. So it's really, really cool because it's a lot more seamless to add into your life versus thinking like, yeah, I'm out to eat. I have no idea what's in that food. You can literally go out and say Panchero's chicken burrito with rice and black beans. That will be a category. That will be a specific thing on there. And again, this isn't exact. You're not going to get the exact calories for the exact amount, but it does give you some good framework and it does give you some good starting points. So the large database of foods and variety of foods makes it incredibly easy to count calories. Also, another really thing that I think is really cool is that you can actually sync to other health apps. So I know specifically on the iPhone, some of these calorie calculators, you can literally sync to the app. So if I'm, say, burning calories on my iWatch, I don't have an iWatch, I used to, and I had a workout, it can actually add that workout into the calorie calculator app. So if you're kind of trying to see how much movement you have per day, it can just make it a little more seamless, a little more integrative, which I think is really, really neat. One of the other things, especially if you are somebody who is very health conscious and trying to find every little nutrient that's going into your body, is that some of these health apps will actually show the specific nutrients from the different foods. Some won't, some aren't that in depth, but for example, we'll go back to the apple. If I type in an apple and put one apple, it will literally give me the breakdown of all the vitamins and minerals in that specific thing. So if you're somebody who is lacking on a specific micronutrient, specific vitamin, let's say you're somebody who's trying to focus on getting proper vitamin D because it's the winter time and maybe you don't get as much sunlight as you need. You can literally see the vitamin D in food and the vitamin D that you are consuming throughout the day on those specific given apps. So really, really useful tool. If you're somebody who's maybe a little bit older and you're trying to focus more on these things, sodium's one that comes off the top of my mind. You're trying to see all the sodium in your overall diet. You can literally see the sodium breakdown of each specific food and can get your specific sodium breakdown at the end of the day too. And that's great. That's great. You can easily track your progress too. So you can go back, over time and say, okay, I was eating 2,500 calories 3 weeks ago and I haven't lost any weight in 3 weeks. So that's a good kind of note for you to say, I'm probably going to have to cut back. Maybe 2,300 calories, a little bit less. And then over time, you can usually put in your weight on those apps too. So apps are really, really crucial. If you're finding value from this and getting some good information, please give the video a like so far. Once you've kind of done calorie counting through apps for a while and you see all the different foods that are out there and all the different ways that calories and food go together, you can start maybe bringing a notebook around. And instead of using that app all the time, a notebook is another great option. You can just simply write down the food. You can write down the amounts of food. So I had one chicken breast, or I had half a chicken breast and roughly 1 cup of rice. And you could either log the calories now or you can log them later. So you could look up online, just type in 1 chicken breast calories, and you see it's roughly 120 to 140. That actually is about right. 4 ounces is about 120 to 140. And you can then just write that down, 120 on your thing. And then the rice, 1 cup of rice, about 200 calories, right? Just write 200. You could do this during the day. If you're somebody who's busy, you might just write down the food and then later in the day you'll go log them later. Or if you have time at your meals, you can literally look them up at the same time. The benefits for this, it might be a little less invasive for some people because pulling out your phone and spending time, if you're out to eat and scanning all the barcodes when you're about to eat your meal, it might just be not quite as enjoyable for you. So some things to consider. With that said though, you might not be able to be as accurate because you might be a little more kind of guessing overall amounts because you're going to be kind of like eyeballing like, okay, that looks like about that amount of food. So I'm going to write that down in my notebook. Kind of a step up from the notebook and what I ended up doing before I stopped calorie calculating altogether. Is using the calculator on my phone. And I did just mention that I do currently not count calories, but I have for multiple years before I've gotten to this point. And it all started with MyFitnessPal and simply learning all the calories in different foods. Now I'm at a point where I can basically, keep a rough idea in my head and I don't need to use these apps, but it did start with a lot of work of just finding out the calories and things. And you can kind of get a good database, little encyclopedia on the rough calories of all the foods. Once you get to that point, you don't really need to do it as much. Going back to the calculator on my phone, this was kind of similar to the notebook, except I was at a point where I could really, really ballpark calories pretty good in each meal. So all I would do is say, okay, I'm eating breakfast and I got a handful of eggs, couple pieces of toast, got some hash browns, whatever. I know that's roughly about 700 calories. So I literally go into the calculator on my phone and type in 700. You could do this on the notebook too, but this is what I was doing at one point and it worked really well for me. So 700 plus, and then go on your normal day. It's lunchtime. Okay, I got a sandwich, I got some chips, I got a diet soda, roughly 600 calories. I would put 600 in my calculator. Boom. So up to 1,300 calories. And then dinner, maybe you had a couple pieces of chicken, maybe you had a small cookie, maybe you had some vegetables with a little bit of potatoes. 800 calories total, boom, equals. At the end of the day, you get 2,100. That is what I did for a really long time, probably about a year before I transitioned to fully not counting calories. So obviously that's gonna not be quite as accurate as the actual counting calories with MyFitnessPal or these apps, but it'll give you a very good estimate. And if you're not somebody who's like really intense about counting calories and you're trying to lose a bunch of weight, or you're trying to optimize every single thing about your body, it's okay to just have an estimate. This is what you should be trying to get to at some point. I also did forget to mention too, I did, when I was first starting out, use a weighing scale. Weighing scales are probably the most precise and accurate thing for basically any type of food. So in a serving size, you might see it says, okay, 1 cup or 30 grams. So you can say 1 cup of rice or 30 grams. So you literally get that food on a weight scale, get 30 grams, and you know pretty much within 10% that you're going to be exactly on those calorie amounts. So this takes time. It's not very easy, but just start with the apps. Those make it incredibly simple when you're first starting and give you some really good ideas. And then of course you can build up over time and try to do it more on your own with more of the ballparking estimate. So another thing you might be thinking of is, okay, you know, I do want to maybe try this ballparking method, and I just want to know a little bit more about calculating the number of calories in the foods I eat. So let's talk about this. How do you calculate the calories of the food you eat? So to kind of segue into this, I want to just talk about what actually makes up food to begin with. So what makes up food? Well, food in itself is made up of a lot of different things, but we're going to focus on what's called the macronutrients. And macronutrients are broken down into protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Protein has 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. Carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram as well, similar to protein. Actually exact same to protein. And I did want to put alcohol in here. Alcohol is not really a macronutrient, but it is an interesting nutrient in that it has 7 calories per gram. So if you're somebody who's trying to maintain your weight, just realize 7 calories per gram is a lot. It's close to the same amount of calories per 1 gram of fat versus protein and carbohydrates. So just something for you to realize, and something I kind of wanted to have as a side note. So realizing that in each molecule of food, in each gram of food, there are calories. And certain foods, generally speaking, will have more calories than the other. As we just looked at, protein. So protein sources, for example, are going to have 4 calories per gram. Fat sources, so peanut butter, almonds, nuts, fattier sources of meat, they're going to have more calories because, as we just discussed, fat has 9 calories per gram. So let's just look at a piece of lettuce, for example, kind of the base of a salad. Lettuce in itself has basically just carbohydrates. So a handful of carbohydrates, not much at all, not many calories at all. But if we add lettuce, as in the salad, and we add some dressing, that's a lot of fat. We add some chicken, that's some protein. And then we add some cheese, that's got carbs, that's got fat and protein. This just inflated all of that lettuce, right? We added extra calories because all of these different things have more calories to them. So I really just wanted to say this, and this might seem kind of like a duh and obvious thing, but just realizing that certain foods have more calories. You can take a basic food like a piece of chicken and it's only going to have a few calories, but usually this is where a lot of people get into trouble, is that they'll start lumping a bunch of foods together in casseroles. Or the salad, for example, you'll take a salad that's pretty lean and add a bunch of dressing, a bunch of cheese, a bunch of croutons, a bunch of fatty meat, and inflate the calories a lot. But just knowing, again, certain foods have certain calories can be a good ballpark estimate to start out. So when we're talking about looking a little more in depth on this, and if you are finding some value from this, please give the video a like. We can look at nutrition labels as a good metric if you are eating something with a nutrition label. If you are not eating something with a nutrition label, what you can actually do is go online and just type in nutrition of an apple, and it will basically give you a nutrition label of all the calories, the serving size, etc. So this is saying, we're just going to use like a granola bar example. So say you flip around a granola bar box, there's going to be a lot of different things on there. But when we're talking about counting calories, and specifically the calories in the food, you will first want to notice the serving size. This could be in tablespoons, so maybe a serving size is 2 tablespoons, maybe a serving size is 1 cup, maybe the serving size is like 12 chips. It could be a quarter of a pizza or a slice of pizza. And then after that, you will see the calories per serving. This is crucial. This is crucial. So as we just discussed, your serving size might be a 1 cup. 1 cup of rice is a serving size. And if it says 110 calories per serving, you might notice that, okay, there is 110 calories per serving of 1 cup of etc. Maybe it's like 1 cup of Cheerios or something, right? Those are just, I'm kind of just throwing those out there. But good places to start. Also, you might have calories per serving, and it could be kind of in a different type of serving. So it might say 300 calories per slice. That makes it easier for you because you know it's 1 slice, but you don't know how big the slice is. So if we're thinking about like a pizza, for example, we would know that in the serving size, a slice is considered a quarter of the pizza. And that's pretty generous. Usually it's going to be like 1/8 of it, but that's for example. Maybe it'll say just 500 calories per drink or per bottle. That could be another way that it shows serving. But it could also say too that there is 500 calories per serving. So this is where people get in a lot of trouble. If you're taking like a big, like a 2 liter of soda, and it says that there's 12 servings in it, and basically 1 cup is a serving, guess what? There's not 120 calories in that entire bottle of 2 liter. There's 120 calories in 1 cup. 1 serving. So you then would have to multiply the 12 cups by that 120 to find the calories in the whole bottle. This is a really crucial thing. Next time you go look at any nutrition label, flip it around and just start reading it because you will find out a lot about it. You can also kind of look at the servings per container or per bag. That'll kind of give you some frame too. Sometimes if you're eating like a granola bar, for example, or a protein bar, or even a small bag of chips, it might literally just say the servings per container is 1 bag or 1 bottle. 1 pizza, if you're lucky. For some people, that is the case. 1 pizza is a serving, even if it's not. But just knowing that there is a serving size of that specific food, and that serving size goes in tandem with the calories per serving. So really look at that when you're looking at the nutrition label. I also think that the internet is super crucial and helpful when you're trying to find the calories in the specific foods you eat, because you can literally just Google, what are the calories in 1 apple? Or what are the calories in half a pizza? And you can find out a lot of really good information just by doing that. Also, nowadays, there's lots of menus on restaurants that can give you some really quick and easy ideas of, okay, I'm going to, let's say, Qdoba or Chipotle for lunch. And you can see roughly, okay, a chicken bowl with cheese and rice and whatever I get in it has this amount of calories. And that's great. That makes it super easy for yourself. And actually, a lot of them too are really cool, where they have calorie builders where you can literally put in your specific thing and customize it. Basically, companies nowadays are really on board and trying to give people the tools to count their calories, because there's a lot of people trying to maintain their weight. And calorie counting apps also can make this a little bit easier as well. If you learned something new from that section, please give the video a like for the added value it brought to your life. On top of this, some healthy and low calorie meal ideas. I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up when they're first starting out in their weight loss routine, is that they just don't know where to even start. So I'm gonna hopefully give you some really simple ideas here. This is what I do for myself and what I recommend for a lot of the people that I work with, to make it quick, to make it cheap, to make it healthy, and to make it the easiest for yourself. And we'll first look at meals, and then we'll look at protein. So we're gonna go through this concept of just picking one thing out of each of these categories and making it the really easiest for yourself. So you're gonna pick one protein, lean source of protein specifically. So this could be chicken breast, that's one of my favorites. And you could do pork chops, some lean pork chops, ground beef, lean ground beef, or just lean cuts of steak. There are some steaks that are a little bit leaner than the others. You'd have to do some research on that. Maybe low-fat dairy if you're somebody who's vegetarian, that could be your protein source. So Greek yogurt is a great example. Maybe some low-fat cheese or even just some milk. That could be your source of protein. So that's the first thing you pick. You pick one of those. The next thing you're going to do is pick a veggie or a fruit. If you're somebody who likes the sweetness a little more, maybe lean towards the fruit. If you're somebody who likes to pair your vegetable with your protein, that's what I like to do, I would lean towards the veggie. You also could do both, but we're just trying to make it easier on yourself, so I would just pick one. Some examples of vegetables that you could do: broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, peppers, onions, spinach, Brussels sprouts. You could get some lettuce in there, maybe some celery. Trying to think of some others off the top of my head. Collard greens, asparagus is a really good one. I love asparagus. Fruit examples: bananas, apples, grapes, oranges, kiwi, pineapples. What are all the fruits I like? Blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, all great ideas. So you picked a protein, right? You got your protein, you got your veggie or your fruit. And then after that, we're going to add a little bit extra carb. And this is where you might need to kind of play around a little bit. If you're somebody who's trying to lose a lot of weight, you might want to lean towards a smaller portion of this carb section. If you're somebody who's just trying to maintain weight or maybe even gain weight, you're just trying to learn a little bit more about counting calories, you could probably get away with a slightly bigger portion of carbs. Some good types of carbs to pick for your meal would be a whole grain carb or just a filling carb. So a filling carb would be something like potatoes. Sweet potatoes are great. Regular russet potatoes or white potatoes are great. Lots of different options that you can pick from there. Some whole grain bread, whole grain wraps. I love wraps. I use those a lot. Oats are great examples. So you can make some oats, oatmeal. Again, you can really spice those up. And actually, if you have some fruit, adding the fruit into the oatmeal is a really great idea. English muffins, you can get some whole grain English muffins. I really like those too. Quinoa is another really good option. You can get brown rice too. That'd be a whole grain that you could get for yourself. So you're picking one of those things. So those are just a few options. And then you're gonna add a low-calorie sauce. And some of my favorites, there are a lot of different ones, but there's sugar-free barbecue sauce out there, sugar-free ketchup, mustard's another zero-calorie one. There's low-fat dressings, soy sauce is another good one, hot sauce is another good one. You're basically making this as simple as possible, right? So we picked that protein, we picked that veggie, we picked that carb, and we picked our low-calorie sauce. You're basically just gonna dump it in a bowl, kind of stir it up, and you're good to go. Make it super easy on yourself. You could meal prep this for the week and have a bunch of meals for the week, or you could just bulk prep a bunch of chicken or a bunch of protein for one day and overall just kind of work from there. So just a few general ideas to make it easy, because the easier it is, the easier you will adhere to it and do it for a long period of time. Some also good low-calorie snacks. Fat-free popcorn is one of my favorites. People will think popcorn like, oh, popcorn, that's not really healthy. Well, if you get 94% fat-free popcorn, this actually has basically virtually no fat in it, really high in fiber, good whole grain, really, really healthy. Give you some good nutrients. Low-fat Greek yogurt I love with a little bit of fruit. Sugar-free pudding and jello is a good option too, just for some kind of lower calorie snacks. And then rice cakes. You can get some really tasty rice cakes as well that work super, super good. So all great ideas for yourself if you're just trying to start getting some healthy meals, because I do understand that it is very overwhelming when you're first starting out and trying to eat healthy food. All right, so next portion we're gonna lean right into is staying motivated to counting calories. So believe it or not, you're not gonna always feel like you wanna count calories. You're gonna go to weddings, you're gonna go to birthdays, you're gonna go to your grandma's house, your mom's house, your family's house, and they're gonna be making some delicious food. So you're gonna think like, I'm just throwing out the calories and I'm not gonna, worry about this. But to actually get lasting weight loss for yourself, you need to stay consistent. So let's look at some ways to stay motivated to count calories and stick to your goals. I think the first thing that we can go over is discussing what's your reason for actually losing weight to begin with. Are you losing 10 pounds or trying to lose 10 pounds maybe to look better for a wedding? That could be something. Are you trying to lose weight to just feel healthier? Or maybe you're trying to fit into a pant size that you used to be able to fit into. These are all great reasons that a lot of people will try to start losing weight. And knowing your why, knowing the exact reason for wanting to lose weight is incredibly crucial and will allow you to stay motivated when times are tough. And times will get tough. You will not feel motivated all the time, and realize this. The thing that I always recommend for people too is to try to bring as much emotion to that overall weight loss goal as possible. So how will you feel if you don't achieve that goal? If you have no feeling in that goal, ultimately to where you're like, it doesn't really mean much for me if I don't achieve that goal, you're not going to be as motivated to do it. So make it meaningful. Literally tell yourself, how am I going to feel if I don't lose 10 pounds by my wedding, or lose 10 pounds for just feeling better for myself, or if I don't lose weight to be healthier and live longer for my kids or my family, or all these different things. Ask yourself how they'll make you feel, especially when you're unmotivated and not feeling like doing it. Understanding the motivation won't last is also crucial. So when this happens, you need to go back to your why, and also don't beat yourself up over it. This happens so many times where people will slip up on their overall health routine, slip up on their health goals, and they will think like, it's just not worth it anymore. I messed up one day. I'm just gonna completely, all my progress is lost, right? No, not at all, not at all. So go back to your why, remind yourself, I'm doing this for a specific reason, and then don't beat yourself up, get back on the bandwagon, because consistency in itself will beat intensity. So the question I wanna pose to you is, do you want to lose weight fast and temporarily, or slow and forever? Because with that motivation, you can really go right away, count calories super hard, lose a bunch of weight really quickly, but that weight usually does not last for people. Instead, we want to think about this from a long-term approach, doing it for a very long period of time. And thinking about it of just being consistent day in and day out when counting calories is going to lead you to those weight loss goals. The last thing I wanted to talk about when looking at being motivated for weight loss is to just be flexibly rigid. And this is something I say to people, and they're immediately like, what in the world does that mean, Logan? Well, use your goal as a steering point. Use it as a guiding point towards what you're trying to do. If you're trying to lose weight for, let's just say for a wedding, for example, or just to get better for the summer, that's your steering point. You're trying to do everything for that. But it might come to a point where you're like, this goal doesn't really serve me anymore. I really don't care about losing weight for that specific thing. Pivot your goal, change it a little bit. Be okay if your results aren't quite up to par. If you are trying to lose 10 pounds in 1 month and you get to that first month and you're like, man, I only lost 5 pounds. That's great. You still lost 5 pounds. Maybe just cut back your goal. Maybe make it a little more realistic for yourself. Just change it a little bit. It doesn't have to be super crazy. Again, this is something we want to be long-term for yourself, and the sooner you can look long-term at your goal setting and counting calories, the better off you will be, because that's how it needs to be for long-term lasting results. Let's talk about some common mistakes now that individuals often run into when counting calories. One of the first things, and so prevalent in individuals that I work with, is they don't count liquid calories. You would be surprised at the amount of liquid calories that exist in soda, for example, energy drinks, sometimes coffee if you have a bunch of sugar and cream added into it, different alcoholic drinks. There's so many different things added into it. Alcohol in general just even has calories even without the sugary alcohol stuff added to it. These can literally add 300 to 500 extra calories per day to your overall calorie budget or calorie goal, and you don't even realize it. It doesn't even register for you. So if you're trying to count calories, I highly recommend start looking at your liquid calories. Orange juice, juices in general are another source of liquid calories that people don't think of. Oh, it's healthy, I'm drinking juice, right? Well, here's the thing. That's still calories. And if you're trying to lose weight, you need to monitor those things. I usually tell people to cut out all liquid calories because that makes weight loss much, much easier. Another common mistake individuals often make when counting calories is to not count sauces or spreads or those different things. So examples of this could be like ranch dressing, for example, on a salad. That's a lot of calories, very fatty sauce. Maybe you're somebody who puts a bunch of extra Chinese sauce in a Chinese dish, right? So like a stir-fry dish, and you have those like good soy sauce combos with a little bit of General Tso's mix, right? Very high fat, that type of stuff. Mayonnaise. I'm just thinking of ones off the top of my head here. Mayonnaise is a spread that can really get out of hand. If you're using a lot of mayonnaise, you might be caking on another 100 calories to your sandwich super, super quickly with, again, not really much substance. Barbecue sauce is another dangerous one. That has a lot of extra sugar added to it. I like using a sugar-free barbecue sauce version. That's a lot less calories and a lot less sugar. But yeah, barbecue sauce can really, really get out of hand, and especially when you're at an actual homemade barbecue place, so like, you know, Famous Dave's or maybe a hole in the wall down the street, and you get their barbecue sauce, they will usually already have barbecue sauce on their food, and then you add more onto it. You could literally be adding 300 to 500 calories just in sauce, So be aware of those sauces. Also cooking oils too. So if you're somebody who normally cooks in butter or a little bit of vegetable oil, those are all calories that will literally inflate your meal so much. So you got to count all those calories. Everything comes at a cost. Another common mistake that people will make is looking at home preparation versus eating out differently. So when you prepare food at home, you know exactly the amount of calories going into all that food. And if you are finding value from this so far, please give the video a like. So you're finding all the calories in that food, and you know exactly the amount of calories. When you eat out, you have no idea how that food is prepared. So you might be thinking, okay, I normally cook my chicken breast in just a little bit of oil and use a little bit of seasoning and a tiny bit of sauce. So that's probably about the same calories as when I go out to eat. No, not at all. Usually you got to think about it from the restaurant's perspective. They're getting extra oils in there, extra sodium, extra butter, extra things to make it taste good because they want you to come back. So you need to look at eating out as you probably need to budget an extra 200 to even 400 calories of basically damage control calories, where they're adding in those extra sources of fat and etc., because it is likely going to be much, much higher calorie when eating out. Another common mistake individuals often make when counting calories is getting wrapped up in one day and feeling like one day really, really matters. So I like looking at counting calories from more of a weekly perspective. So say, you know, I can eat about 3,000 calories per day. I would multiply that by 7. So 3,000, you know, so by the end of the week, that's 21,000 calories per the week. And if I go overboard on one day, maybe I eat 3,500 calories, the next day, maybe I'm just going to eat a little bit less. So I'm going to eat 2,500 calories. And then at the end of the week, you're going to net the exact same amount of calories, because it is kind of like a budget. It is kind of like a budget if you look at it that way. So at the end of the week, it really doesn't matter because it's kind of a wash. Also, too, realize that even if you don't get back on track and do that buffer damage control we just talked about, it's really not going to matter that much, too, at the end of the day. If you're consistent with your calorie goals and doing this for a long period of time, which is how you should be going about it when you are trying to do weight loss and calorie counting, right? Again, one day is irrelevant. Think about it. If you mess up on one day, 2 days, even an entire week, but the rest of the week and the rest of the year is perfectly good for you, does that really matter? No, absolutely not. Another common issue that individuals often make when counting calories is under-calculating. People give themselves the benefit of the doubt lots of times and think that, oh, I'm eating a normal portion of, mac and cheese, for example, or I'm eating a normal portion of a bowl of cereal, for example, and they will undercalculate the overall amount of calories they eat. And when they do that, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're essentially saying to yourself, I'm actually hitting 2,500 calories, but I'm not losing weight, and I should be losing weight on that overall calorie goal because I found on my calorie calculator online that that's the amount that I need to lose weight. But what you're doing is you're counting inaccurately. So be honest with yourself. You need to calculate precisely. If you are doing it correctly and as precisely as you can, you will lose weight. It's simple math. So make sure you are not undercalculating. And at the end of the day, you can probably just add an extra 100 to 200 calories on your overall calorie calculating app or however you do it. And that's probably a good source of damage control for yourself. Another common thing, and I hate that I even have to mention this, is people will act like they don't exist. So they'll act like when they go to a buffet, calories just don't even exist. I'm just gonna eat everything, and it's just gonna melt off my body. No, not the case at all. Unfortunately, it all does come at a cost. So instead of looking at this as a bad thing, realize it does give you power, because just like you can't eat everything, you can eat certain foods, and as long as you are within your calorie budget for the day, you'll be fine. Say you go to a buffet, for example, and you're trying to maintain a 2,000 calorie diet and they have pizza, chicken, all these good things. You can have a very small portion of each of those. You might not have as much as you want, but you can still have some of those foods. You're just going to have to kind of watch your calories for the rest of the day. So it just gives you a little bit of freedom for some, and this is kind of a mindset thing. Another common mistake that people make when counting calories is by just eating healthy and thinking that that's going to allow them to lose weight. The problem with eating healthy is that there are still lots of quote-unquote healthy foods that if you eat too much of, you will gain weight. For example, we talked about a salad earlier in the podcast, and a salad in itself isn't too bad. A little bit of lettuce, maybe there's some chicken breast, tiny bit of cheese, tiny bit of ranch dressing, not too bad. Maybe 300 to 400 calories there. But what kills people is they will add extra croutons, extra cheese, extra dressing, some bacon bits. Maybe they'll have like a cookie with it, extra. So you're kind of taking that healthy salad and making it unhealthy by adding so many extra calories to it. You can do this even for just a plain chicken breast. You could literally just eat chicken breast, but if you still eat 1,000 calories of chicken breast and that's over your calorie budget for the day, you're gonna gain weight even if you were just eating chicken breast, just because of the sheer fact of calories being more than you need per day. Eating healthy is great, but realize you still need to eat healthy and monitor your overall calories. If you are finding value from this, please give the video a like. Greatly appreciate it. The last thing is being too religious about counting calories. And this isn't saying like, oh, I'm praising, the pasta gods in the sky, right? This is just being too focused on actually meticulously counting calories. When we're talking about calories in general, there is actually on nutrition labels about a 10 to 30% chances of there being an error on that nutrition label. So if you're eating something that's 1,000 calories on a nutrition label or looking at it, it could be 1,100 calories, it could be 1,300 calories, it could be 700 calories. There is a huge buffer and error zone. So don't feel like you need to focus on counting super religiously and super close, because at the end of the day, guess what? You're probably going to be a little off anyway. This is about more consistency over anything, and that consistency is what's going to get you the best long-lasting results for your weight loss. So don't be too religious, and especially too, if you're somebody who's just trying to be a little bit healthier and you're not trying to optimize your overall weight loss and lose a bunch of weight right? You can give a little bit, you can give and take a little bit. It's not going to ultimately kill you. So the next portion of this I wanted to talk about is eating intuitively. So there will be a day where you might be thinking, I don't want to do calorie counting anymore. So intuitive eating is a great way to still kind of monitor your overall calorie goal and keep your overall calorie budget in check, but not necessarily forget about calories completely, because as we talked about, calories still do exist. So let's look at mindful eating. So when we're about to eat, what I want you to do is just take a second to ask yourself, how do you feel in this moment? Are you tired, anxious, stressed? Are you happy, bored, sad? How do you feel? How do you feel? Because what we're trying to do is see in that exact moment your hunger versus your emotion. You're going to start to notice that in certain emotions you have. When you're bored, I notice I'm hungrier. When I'm sad, I'm not as hungry. When I'm happy, I'm not as hungry. You're going to notice this in yourself. It's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different for everyone. Myself personally, when I'm anxious, I sometimes get a little bit more hungry, but for a lot of times, it's when I'm bored. When I'm bored, that's when my appetite goes crazy and when I'm hungry. So this is something I'm self-aware on, and I try to not be bored as much as possible, basically. Try to go out and do stuff. It's going to be different for everyone, though. And then just looking again at how does that specific emotion make you feel? Does it make you crave junk food? Does it make you crave healthy food? I know different emotions too. If I'm feeling kind of happier or lighter and not as anxious, I usually am looking towards eating healthier food much, much more prevalently, which is great. So I know I need to try to get to that state more to allow myself to basically make calorie calculating easier, or just intuitive eating easier, because again, we're not going to be directly counting calories with this method. So after you become aware of these thoughts and emotions, you can start to make mindful choices based off your meals. So you're first going to start by picking off nutritious foods. You're not going to just say like, oh, I'm just going to eat a pizza and that's mindful eating. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it is okay to just eat those things, but be completely honest with yourself when you're eating it. Chew it slowly. Smell the food. Kind of limit distractions, and also let the food settle when you're eating it. Doing all of these things together can put you really in the moment, and sometimes you'll realize that when you eat this way, when you're very mindful and just completely consumed in just the food, no distractions, you might not even fully want that food by the end of it. You might eat half of it and you're like, you know what? I was just kind of bored, and that's actually what led me to eat this. So mindful eating, the whole concept is to eat what you want when you want it, but when you do want something, to be very, very aware of your emotions and to not just say, oh, I'm craving that, so I'm going to go right to it. Sit in your craving for a little bit. Sit in your feeling for a little bit and see, is that what I really want? And then don't beat yourself up too much on those specific food choices, but do be mindful about portions, because calories still do exist. The whole idea with this mindful eating concept and eating intuitively is that it will help to control your appetite more, it helps to control your eating when bored, and helps to control calories without directly counting them. Calories still exist, calories still matter, but being a little mindful about these things can really control your appetite and make it a little easier. And you don't always have to do this. You don't always have to do this. I do this sometimes. Sometimes I just say, whatever, I'm just gonna not worry about it. But it's good to be in tune with your overall body in this way, and can really teach you a lot about what triggers you. So to finish off today, I wanted to look at some pros and cons of counting calories. So you might be thinking, if you're watching this, why should I do it and why should I not do it? So let's look at some pros. And probably the biggest pro that I've realized in my time is that you simply realize the overall calorie amounts in a lot of the foods. And that is super incredible when you are trying to lose weight on your own for yourself. You become so much more self-aware when picking foods. When you're out at restaurants, you might say to yourself, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there's literally 1,500 calories in a giant burger and fries with a side of milkshake. or it might actually even be more than that. So guess what? When you know that, you're probably going to be thinking, maybe I don't want to make that choice for myself today because that's a lot of calories and I'm trying to lose weight and monitor my overall calorie consumption. So you become very self-aware. Self-aware not only at restaurants, but at home too. So when you're preparing meals, you can think, okay, I know that butter has, 100 calories per tablespoon, and an apple has 80 calories, and a granola bar has 200 calories, and, roughly I have this amount of food per my meal. That's going to tell you a rough estimate of your calories per your meal when you're making stuff. And it also gives you a little bit of freedom because when you're going to restaurants, buffets, and those things, you know that I can eat some of these things, but it will come at a little bit of a cost. I might need to only eat half of the pizza, for example, or half of the burger and half of the fries, or not as much fries, or substitute the fries, or get a diet soda instead of regular soda because you know the sheer amount of calories in all of these different foods. Another great thing about counting calories is that it makes weight loss so easy. If you burn 2,500 calories per day, you know that because we looked at that NIH body weight calculator. Link will be in the description too if you want to find out your overall calculator goals. You eat 2,500 calories a day, or you need that to maintain your weight, and you eat 2,000 calories less, and you are tracking specifically, guess what? You will lose weight. No questions asked. It takes all the guesswork out because you literally know we are down to a science. We are looking at energy balance. Also, too, the last thing is that it can make transitioning to intuitive eating or basically not counting calories easier because you still are self-aware of certain foods that, oh, I know there's going to be more calories in these foods. So you might not be able to eat them quite as much, but still give yourself some grace when you're just picking different foods to eat. Some cons, and there are some cons to calorie counting. Something that I dealt with personally is that you can become very obsessive with certain calories and just looking at everything. Looking at everything as kind of a game, right? So you're at a birthday party, 200 calories in cake, 100 calories in my appetizers, 300 calories in this. And this is still something I struggle with where I'm looking at everything kind of like a game. Can become very obsessive. So if you are somebody with obsessive tendencies, just realize maybe don't go super full force on this, but realize that it is something that happens. Also, for some, it does kind of take the fun out of eating because if we look at what we just said, you might become so obsessive in the overall calories of each specific thing that you're not even focused on the meal itself. You're not able to be as mindful or be present with your family or friends at these meals because all you're thinking about is the overall amount of calories. You also could be getting judged from others, and this happens all the time. You will start losing some weight and counting calories, and you go to a family dinner, and they, you say, "Oh no thanks, I don't want any cake. I'm trying to cut back a little bit," and you'll immediately get judged and say, "Oh, I'm, too good for you," or "This cake's too good for you," or "Trying to lose weight." It's almost like a stigma behind counting calories and losing weight. So this can be a con for some people if you are doing a lot of things with your family, friends, or maybe even your spouse or your loved one that you live with and you're cohabitating with. They could be judging you, and that could be an issue. A lot of times people, when they're counting calories and trying to lose weight too, they'll often focus a lot on the scale, which is a common issue. So a con is basically where you will weigh yourself and you'll see, oh my gosh, I didn't lose any weight, so I'm going to restrict my calories even more. That is something that probably needs to be done, but it's the fact that you immediately jump to, let's just cut more, versus looking at what happened. Maybe I'm not counting as accurately. Maybe I just need a little more physical activity. Maybe I need to try to change the foods I'm eating to be a little more full. So it's not quite as hard to actually lose weight and think on these things. So focusing on the scale is a super common issue that many individuals deal with when counting calories. And something I just kind of steer you towards is trying to have more performance-related goals when it comes to losing weight and weight loss, as this allows a lot of people to still get healthier, still get fit, but not focus too much on the overall weight. And performance related goals, for example, are I just want to be able to bench press 225 pounds, or I want to be able to walk a mile without breathing hard, or I want to be able to play with my kids without, issues and, feeling good. Those are all performance related goals. Sometimes calorie counting can be embarrassing too, especially when you are, out and about and you're trying to eat and you're, looking through the menu and you're like, they don't have calories on this. Like, what do I do? Or maybe you're out at a restaurant with your family and you're punching in the calories on your phone, and, you might kind of feel a little self-conscious about this. And I would just highly recommend to remind yourself of your goals, remind yourself of why you're doing this, because at the end of the day, this is for you. You're trying to be healthier for yourself, and just putting everyone else's perspectives, everyone else's thoughts on the side, and remember that this is for you. That's going to help a lot with this kind of embarrassment factor. Another thing about calorie counting is that it's also very overwhelming and time consuming when you're first starting out. It may feel like, okay, I got this app, I got MyFitnessPal, so what do I do now? I got to scan all this stuff. There's so many calories in this and that and everything else. And, you can't just eat food. You can't just look at the food and eat it. So that's where it could sometimes become overwhelming. It may take some of the fun out of eating again, and it can be somewhat time consuming. So this is where you got to find a way to implement it into your life where it's not as time consuming. Maybe you'll just write down all your food on a notebook throughout the day, implement it in your app later in the day. Maybe you can just do the app, but don't be as religious with it. So you're not going to actually weigh out your food. You're not going to use cups and stuff. Do what works for you. Gain some confidence in that overall calorie counting, and over time you will achieve your weight loss goals in no time. Like the video again if this gave you some value. Subscribe to the channel. We help individuals of all abilities become healthier in life and increase their knowledge of the gym. Otherwise, I'm going to link another video right now giving you 11 reasons why you are always hungry on a weight loss diet. Thanks for clicking. We'll see you next time.